Shopping centers have become an integral part of urban life. Scary stories about huge concrete boxes filling our streets are very popular. Everyone wonders what happens when a mall is empty. What kind of mysticism goes on there deep at night, and what kind of supernatural manifestation can roam the dark, barely lit corridors? So let's find out. I used to work as a security guard at a mall. Not a dusty job, if it weren't for the night rounds. Oh, how I hated them. The lights are on, but it doesn't make it any easier. When you're walking alone down a long corridor, and the echo of your footsteps echoes through a huge room the size of a hangar, it gets uncomfortable. Of course, people leave the mall building quite late, but there comes a dead hour when you are left alone with the building. And then it starts to feel like a huge living organism, overflowing with people's emotions, and at night it starts playing with you to get a discharge. A lot of our jobs didn't last. They quit after the first night shift. Somehow I got used to it and even adapted myself, having worked out a few simple rules for my night rounds. I followed the same route and was never surprised, never showed fear. If he thought you were afraid, it would only get worse, and you might not come back from the empty halls. It all started when I was still on the first floor. I heard a child's laughter somewhere upstairs, and then the loud stomping of little feet, as if a child was running around up there. He was laughing loudly and gaily. At first I even believed that some little rascal had stayed here overnight. I ran down the halls myself, trying to find him. I called out, tearing up my throat. And the answer was mocking laughter and distant stomping. And the longer you hear the laughter, the faster you realize that it does not belong to the child. It slips in sometimes low, hoarse sounds that cannot make a human throat. This is where the rule comes in. Do not be surprised at anything and do not show fear. Because one day, as I turned around the bend in the corridor, I saw a mannequin dressed as a skier from a nearby store. He was standing half-turned in the center of the corridor, staring thoughtfully at the closed display case where he was supposed to be standing. As I turned the corner, however, the mannequin turned around at the sound of my footsteps, or an invisible force turned him around. It was an eerie and unexpected sight. What would you do in such a situation? Here I thought I expected me to scream and run away. But for some reason it seemed to me that if I turned my back to the mannequin and started running, something worse might happen. I didn't pretend to be surprised by the sight, though my insides screamed with horror. I walked silently past the mannequin and turned the corner. I stood there, and my heart was pounding. I decided to check the mannequin once again. I looked carefully out of the corner, and he was gone. Standing in his usual pose behind the glass showcase of the store and looking at me mockingly. I also heard, while I was on duty, the train whistle, and not the old one, but the locomotive. It felt like a ghost train rushing somewhere on the second floor. The wheels clattered loudly on the joints of the rails, the wagons clanked. If it was a hallucination, it was very realistic. It was after this train that I began to think that the mall was a living organism that we ourselves had created. It observes us, studies us, and at night, when its strength is at its maximum, it begins to play with people. And it's not a fact that for some people these games have no consequences. I quit my job about 5 years ago. My shift mate knew something about the shenanigans of the mall, but he soon found a better place. And after that, the guards started disappearing during night rounds. Where he went, we never knew. Of course, they tried to keep the dirt out of the house, but rumors were spreading all over the city. They called me from that job and offered me a job as a security guard again, but I refused. I did not want to be an entertainment toy in the hands of powerful forces.
Subscribe to the channel. There will be many more interesting things.